Hey everyone, it's Sleepy Reader, also known as Damien. And this is kind of a continuation of the unboxing I did with my daughter earlier, where we opened up two short boxes that had been mailed to me by my high school friend Bruce. And I was kind of shocked at we just pulled some comics out at random, and I was kind of shocked at what came out, how good a lot of it was. And Bruce is going to send me more boxes. He says they may not be as exciting. They may not be as old comics. So we'll see. But in the meantime, I've been sorting through the rest of the boxes. So just randomly pulling stuff out. Pulled out 22 old Spider-Man comics. Amongst the highlights were Spider-Man number 100 and this number 96, one of those 3 issues that did not have the Comics Code Authority on it, Comics Code Authority seal of approval. This one, which I had no idea, but turns out to be the first appearance of the Prowler. And in my mind, I forgot to connect the Prowler to the Spider-Man Into the Multiverse movie, Into the Spider-Verse, I think that's what it's called. So I guess that makes this a more important key issue, possibly, I don't know. Then I was super excited about having this 122. I did have this one as a kid. Lord knows where it went. I don't think I ever owned 121, and 121 did not turn out to be in the boxes that Bruce sent. All told, though, I think I'd already said 22 Spider-Mans out just in our random search through the comics. I think maybe we in the end pulled out about 50 or 60 comics. So a lot of Bruce's collection was Spider-Man. I was super excited about these 2 Steve Ditko issues. Really happy to own those. I think I may have once owned this one before, although memory's weird. It could have also been a Marvel Tales reprint. And I did not know that this one, when it comes to the key issue things, is apparently the first Gwen Stacy and the first Harry Osborn. That's all well and good for me, but I'm excited for all of these. I get excited by the artists, so I get excited when I get Gil Kane issues, John Romita issues, Steve Ditko issues, definitely. Even the other stuff is exciting to me, but those artists really excite me. And so as I sorted through the boxes, there were another like 52, I think, or 58 more Spider-Mans. So I thought I'd just show you the rest of them. But even though that was a random sampling last time, I don't think there was anything quite as amazing as those ones I just showed you in the rest of the boxes. But I'm still really excited to have so many comics, many of them in pretty good sequences. And so it's clear that back in 89, 90, 91, 92, Bruce was trying to get a complete, or as complete as he could, collection of Spider-Man. And then he got distracted by other life things and stopped buying comics. And without, I guess, me around to keep the excitement going on that, other things were more exciting for him. But it's all to my benefit now that he's moving and wants to clear out stuff. And the other aspect was, we don't know for sure. Some of these comics were mine originally, but probably not most of the Spider-Mans. But some of the Fantastic Fours, maybe the Daredevils, maybe some other stuff. We just don't know, because when we were roommates back around 1990, 91, I left kind of suddenly, I guess. And so some of my comics got left behind there. Anyway, I greatly appreciate the fun I'm having and the excitement of getting so many comics, especially the older ones, all at once. So I'll just show you the rest of the Spider-Man ones, and I'll have to come back at some other point with some of the other stuff. The Daredevils, Iron Mans, Fantastic Four, some Batman, Superman, Brave and the Bold. Well, I should have done this right at the beginning of the video, but anyway, my style is to improvise and not edit. So another thing I want to alert you guys to is tomorrow night I will be doing a live hangout with my buddy Bullseye Bob, the host of the Everything Comics channel. And we plan to do that roughly around 7 p.m. West Coast time. So that will be about 10 p.m. for my East Coast friends and other people scattered throughout the continent at different times. And if you're in Europe, my God, what time would it be? It'd probably be like 3 or 4 in the morning. So anyway, if you can catch that live, that would be fun. We're just going to talk about stuff we've been reading during the shutdown and our thoughts on what's going on in the comic book industry right now. Maybe I'll show some of my other things I've been hauling while I'm on his channel. So that's on his channel. I'll put a link down to it below after I load up this video online. So, anyway, I've got the comics now in kind of an order. This is less exciting than us randomly pulling stuff out of a box, not knowing what we're going to get. But I still wanted to show the rest of these Spider-Man because I think they're really cool. So I've got issue number 46, which I don't know if this is the first appearance of the Shocker or not. It's kind of a beat-up comic, but Bruce apparently bought it for $1. And I don't know if you could still get an intact but maybe slightly beat-up copy of this book still at that price. It's weird how the pricing goes because a lot of the stuff from the 60s was roughly the same price as in the stickers that I saw on the ones that Bruce had bought in the 90s, roughly the same price as the stuff from the 70s, the Ross Andru books and such, which surprised me. I thought even then people would want the John Romita, Gil Kane books more. Anyway, not important really. Here is number 54. I always enjoy a Doc Ock book, so that'll be cool. And number 64, this is one of my favorite Spider-Man covers. It's really incredible, and if you go back far enough in my videos, you'll have seen that I used to have this cover in a giant-sized poster on the wall. But since we kind of turned this room into more of a guest room, it's still mostly my office, but it's more of a guest room, and we took down the comic book decorations. Someday I'll put them up somewhere else. This one's a really cool cover too. Number 71. I assume these are all John Romita covers. He's a great cover artist. And usually the interiors were at least the layouts by him because he was kind of the co-plotter. And then sometimes there were finishing pencilers. Sometimes he did finish pencils. Here is number 82 with Electro on it. Kind of a well-loved copy. Yeah, talking about artists and stuff. Let me just slip this one out and see what the story is here. I really like that cover too. It isn't as big and in your face as a lot of the Romita covers, but it's still cool. So it just says Stan Lee, John Romita, Jim Mooney. So Jim Mooney might have done the finished pencils, or Jim Mooney might have just done the inks. It's hard to know. Just looking at that splash page, I would have think it's more Jim Mooney than John Romita. But Romita was the storyteller, and so a lot of the brilliance of these comics goes to Romita because he's co-plotting and pacing and just making the story work. Yeah, that looks like a lot very strong on the Jim Mooney style. It's interesting how Jim Mooney had kind of a almost shadowy style at Marvel. A lot of heavy blacks, but before that, when he was at DC, like he did a lot of Supergirl issues and other things, and he had a very pleasing, slick kind of more line art style. He was a really good artist who I think was a bit underappreciated. Here's number 84, really cool Kingpin cover. You know, those eye-popping John Romita covers are just amazing. Let's see who did. Let's see what the credits are on the 84. I got time to kill. Okay, this is John Romita, John Buscema, and Jim Mooney. So I guess we're getting 3 great artists in one, with Jim Mooney probably just doing the inks here and John Buscema doing the finished pencils. I suppose this is still somewhat early in John Buscema's career. So that's interesting. I did not know about John Buscema working over John Romita. So Romita, I think, was a great artist, but in interviews I've read, like while I'm reading this book, Jazzy John Romita, from Tomorrow's, his complaint throughout his life is that he was too slow of an artist. And I think speed is what the professional artists of the 50s and 60s and 70s were worried about. That was what made you have success as an artist, that you could draw very fast but still draw very well. And that may be why he took the job as art director, but is no putting him down at all, because I think he was a great artist, a great storyteller, a very important figure, especially for Marvel Comics. Here's number 86. Who is that a shadow of? How could I fight her? She's a female copy of myself. Beware the Black Widow. Oh, it's the Black Widow. When did they decide she wasn't a villain anymore? I don't know. Or maybe it was just a misunderstanding. Oh, another cool cover. This combines that John Romita almost Archie Comics feel along with the superheroics. And Unmasked at Last. I assume it must be this one. If you only read one comic this month, it must be this one. So saith Stan Lee. Number 88. Fighting Doc Ock. I remember reading this one, probably in Marvel Tales. I'm not sure. But what's this? 88. Yeah. So that's a fun cover. I'm less a fan of these kinds of covers that, even though I like continuity and stuff, somehow this is less exciting for me. But anyway, Doc Ock lives, in case you were worried he might be dead. Here we go with number 91, To Smash the Spider. First it was Jameson, then Gwen, and now I've no place to turn. The whole city's against me. And the Prowler returns in number 93. He's back, more dangerous than ever. And number 94, On Wings of Death. What was this guy's name? The Beetle. I was never super worried about this villain. Spidey's origin retold. I wonder what that's about. I'm going to take a peek inside. Stan Lee, John Romita, and Sal Buscema. So did Sal finish the pencils and do the inking, or did he just do the inking? I guess I have to do research on these kinds of things. Or maybe it will say somewhere in my Jazzy John Romita book. It looks very Romita here, so I'm guessing Sal did just the inks. He was a very good inker. Tomorrow's also has an excellent book about Sal Buscema, who in his later days decided he just liked inking, so he, even though he was offered a lot of penciling jobs, he just only took inking jobs. And I think he was John Buscema's favorite inker on him. And in that book, Sal Buscema talks a lot about his struggles to become a very fast penciler and to crack the code of being a fast penciler. Number 95, taking place in swinging London. Spidey swinging around in swinging London. I guess maybe it wasn't swinging by then. I don't know. The hostage must die. Torn from today's headlines. Number 97, another great cover. Really popping. Spidey fights the Goblin and lots more. Enough said. Maybe when they wrote that, they weren't sure what else was going on in the comic maybe as they often do, the covers before the comic book is finished. Okay, here we go. Number 105, skipping over to the 20-cent era. Because I kind of started with the 20-cent era, I get more excited to have books from the 12 and 15-cent era, the books that were just kind of beyond my grasp as a kid because I didn't start buying them soon enough. Let's see who does the art in here. I assume it's still Romita, but no, it's Gil Kane. And I guess Kane helped with the plotting or the Marvel style work, so there is no John Romita breakdowns that he's doing it over. I love the Gil Kane Spider-Man. I think I like the John Romita Spider-Man a little more, but Gil Kane definitely is a standout for me. And Gil Kane is just one of my most favorite Bronze Age artists. And I'm not the only one, of course. It's not an original thought, although until, entering YouTube, I didn't know other people loved a lot of the same artists I did. I didn't know what people thought. Number 106, picture box window. I guess both of these, 105 and 106, during that 10-year anniversary of Marvel's. Number 107, this one feels water damaged. Trapped by the tentacles of death. This is kind of a weird cover. Number 109, Enter Doctor Strange. I'm not sure who this guy is. It's not Wong. No, that can't be Wong. Doctor Strange's assistant. And the Gibbon, that was not a villain I remember being excited about. Number 110, The Birth of the Gibbon. Introducing the newest Marvel superstar. Did the Gibbon ever become a superstar? Not to my knowledge. Oh, speaking of superstars, Kraven. I did not like Kraven. Kraven and the Gibbon together. It's action all the way. Who was drawing at this point? Let's see. John Romita all the way. Looks like John Romita pencils and inks. Interesting. I have to look at these things and compare them to like when Jim Mooney's the inker or whatnot to really get a feel for Romita's style. I know there's some in this series that are Gil Kane inked by John Romita, and I've seen somewhere in some book or probably Tomorrow's magazine examples of how much Romita redrew Gil Kane when he inked him. That's an intense cover. It has definitely a feeling of the early 70s strife. Oh, I assume that smear is from the printer, but I'm not sure. Spidey cops out. When I was a kid, my father was a college professor, and during that era, I seem to remember hearing grown-ups in the distance talking about students occupying student unions and fears of bomb threats and things like that from the students. Dr. Octopus is back, 113. I'm not a big fan of that cover. It's probably still a Romita cover, though. It's just odd the way the newspaper thing is pinned on top of Spider-Man's mask or something. It's just an odd image. Let's see. Where's the credits? A Marvel Masterwork presentation, John Romita art, Jerry Conway script, with art assists by T. Mortellero and Jay Starlin. So we've got some inking or some kind of assistance done by Jim Starlin at this point. That must be pretty early in Jim Starlin's career. I don't know. Never think of Jim Starlin and Spider-Man. And I do appreciate that none of these bags are held together with tape by by Bruce, because I have had a number of accidents on books that were pretty old with tape on bags, and I just avoid that now. Aunt May Assassin, this is it, the last battle, number 115. Number 114, I definitely owned this comic as a kid, but clearly Bruce bought it at a comic book store. The city's blown wide open by a gang war, and the man in the middle, me. The covers don't feel as big now. Things are getting smaller in terms of the figures. I don't change in the mood of the times, change in John Romita's approach. I don't know. It's another one with the name on the back that I noticed in the other video. The Ron, I can't quite read the name, but the same name was on some other comics. This one's in quite nice shape, actually. It feels good. This is again Romita and Conway. And it's interesting, they list Romita's name first over Conway, art and script by. So Romita was a strong part of the script, of the plotting, I'm guessing, and so they put his name first along with him doing the art. Nice stuff, nice art. Was this when Spider-Man doesn't have the right mask on? It doesn't have the eyeball things. There's something else I was going to say about this, but I can't remember. You know what? These were out of order. I went from 113 to 115 to 114. Oh, I was going to say, okay, I haven't looked this one up. So one of the comic shops that Bruce and I must have gone to was Comically Speaking. And I looked that up, and it was somewhere in Massachusetts, and Bruce and I were in the Boston area. But it wasn't in a town that I remember. And it said that the comic book shop had been around for 20 years, but I know that Bruce and I bought these comics 30 years ago. So maybe they were in Boston and moved, or maybe someone came up with the same name and started up a new store after the one called Comically Speaking that we bought comics at closed. I'm not sure. This is a comic I definitely remember as a kid. And this was kind of a creepy villain. Was he kind of like a Frankenstein monster? I'm not sure. So that's number 116. And there is somewhere in this era is ones where they colored these black and white ones from the Spectacular Spider-Man magazine. And I think this might be it. Because it says it's scripted by Stan Lee with additional dialogue by Jerry Conway. So I think they took those black and white ones, colored them in, and maybe changed some of the dialogue or script so that it fit in whatever the continuity at the time was. Yes, because it has a copyright of 1968 along with the copyright of 1972. It's interesting in the 60s and 70s, they're constantly experimenting to get more magazine-sized comics, black and white often, usually, which would sell for more money and compete better on the magazine racks. Comics were being shuffled to the back. They didn't make the newsstands very much money, so they weren't getting the good positions on the newsstand and such. And I think this is probably then the continuation of that story from the larger black and white Spectacular Spider-Man. This is the only really trashed comic that came in this Spider-Man collection. So much so that Bruce had to write Amazing Spider-Man number 118 on some tape because you couldn't see the number there. Here's 119, very cool cover with the Hulk. A little more with the big figures, but still maybe, yeah, I really like this cover. I was going to say still maybe not as dynamic as the earlier ones, but maybe I'm just being prejudiced against things that have a 20-cent sticker on them. Yeah, whoever was selling these for a lot more than the Silver Age Spider-Mans, for maybe because they had the Hulk on them. Maybe the Hulk was considered a hot item there. Fight to the finish with the Incredible Hulk. What more you could ask for? More you could ask for? That's a bit strange. But that's also a cool cover. Oh, here comes one of my favorite early Bronze Age covers of all, and it's, of course, drawn by John Romita, and it's just an incredible perspective, so exciting, made me crave more and more Luke Cage Hero for Hire. I mean, this just sold that character so much to me. Even though really that picture makes no sense. Like, how is Spider-Man between Luke Cage's legs as he wallops him? I suppose maybe he's ducking the hit, except he must have been hit, or we wouldn't have had that sort of hit signal there. Number 124, got the Man-Wolf. Yeah, getting back maybe a return to form of the covers being exciting and big. 128 with the Shadow of the Vulture. This is another favorite cover, although not nearly as much so as that Luke Cage one, but still very cool. I think there's also a Conan comic from maybe 1972 called Shadow of the Vulture. Here's 136. Are we out of the Romita era now? At 136, I'm not sure. I have a suspicion. I mean, it's a Romita cover, but I have a suspicion we'll see Ross Andru inside. Yes, I'm right, Ross Andru. And as a kid, I got my start with John Romita, and I was very disappointed by Ross Andru. I know he was a very talented artist, but I still kind of have that prejudice lingering on. And that's kind of a cool double-page spread. But I had a subscription to Spider-Man during the Ross Andru era, so I've had a lot of these that came to me folded up in our mailbox, our rural mailbox with the flag on it. And those were wrapped in paper, and if you were unlucky, they would have been rained on and everything. And of course, they were all folded in half. Mary Jane, Aunt May, Flash Thompson, all at the mercy of the Green Goblin. So now, I think, for the most part, Gil Kane was taking over on a lot of the covers. Here's 138, though, and that, I'm not sure. That might be John Romita. Man, that's an ugly-looking guy. But 141, definitely a Gil Kane cover. Sadly, no Gil Kane on the inside, I'm pretty sure. That Gil Kane stopped doing Spider-Man, although he would show up on Marvel Team Up quite a bit. Yep, Ross Andru. I had no idea at this time that Ross Andru had done all kinds of classic Silver Age work over at DC, particularly a lot of really beautiful Wonder Woman work. $144, a Gil Kane cover again, The Return of Gwen, is it? The Delusion Conspiracy. 145, The Scorpion Stings But Once. Once, or many, many times, over and over the years. Here he is stinging again. He wants to sting Aunt May. That's a cool cover. Probably Gil Kane. That was 146. 147. Even as a kid, I found this tarantula guy kind of laughable. How does he walk? How does he do anything but jump at you with his pointy shoes? And ironically, Bruce sent me 2 copies. Could one of them be my old copy from childhood? I don't think so, because I would see a subscription crease if it were. 148, The Jackal. 150, that's a nice Gil Kane. That's a very nice Gil Kane cover. I like it. Wonder if this is still Ross Andrew. It probably is, but I'm going to take a look. Ross Andrew is the interior artist. Archie Goodwin, writer. Oh, I'm totally wrong. Gil Kane, artist. So Gil Kane did come back to Spider-Man again. But everything's starting to look smaller and a little less exciting than it did in the earlier years. What year is this? 1975. $152. Nice Gil Kane cover with the shocker. 153. I don't like that cover, but I remember having this issue. Oh, there's a nice cover. That looks like it's back to John, or no, it's probably Gil Kane with the legs. I don't know. 154. One nice thing about modern comics is you can actually find out who drew the cover easily because they'll give a credit to who drew the cover on the inside. Oh, this looks like a return to John Romita covers. 157. That's a very nice cover. $158, more Doc Ock, and Hammerhead. And yeah, if your head looked like Hammerhead, would you try smashing it against walls and see what happens? Okay, now we're jumping ahead a little bit more. 195. I think this is like a Marv Wolfman, Keith Pollard era. Let me look. Yep. And diverse hands doing the inking. I like Keith Pollard's artwork. It was, I don't know how to put it. It always was good. It was never mind-blowing in my memory. But I was always perfectly fine to get a comic drawn by Keith Pollard. This covers should be exciting, but there's something wrong with the way Kingpin's drawn there, in my mind. Number 197. 198, we got a bunch of Mysterios. That's kind of a cool cover. I can't tell who that cover is drawn by. It almost has a Buscema look to me. Sal Buscema, maybe. Okay, now we jump ahead. And these, I think, are comics. Well, some of them even say Damien's on them. But I loved the Roger Stern, John Romita Jr. Period. And so I either rebought these or in 1991, or I still had my copies and kind of added them to this pile. She's Back, the Black Cat. That was 126. And they make the numbers much smaller. It was 226, this is 227. More with the Black Cat. Oh, and I remember loving these issues with the Juggernaut. I love the Juggernaut. 229. 230. I wonder who they had inking John Romita Jr. Did they have Jim Mooney? Oh man, it's hard to read. These are computer glasses, so they're not that great for reading. Yep, they did have Jim Moody doing the inks. So there's a John Romita Jr. splash page. I think this is a period where Jim Shooter was the editor-in-chief and was encouraging artists not to do very splashy work and have lots of panels on the page and sort of focus on the storytelling, but keep the figures less exciting in a way. I don't know. That's my theory about Jim Shooter's theory of art. I know Jim Shooter had some kind of theory of what comic book art should be like and what was important in comic book art. 231, right? Yeah, 231. Before that was 230. Yep. The Cobra. Cobra's Bite, but this Cobra more was a squeeze you kind of guy. Should have been called the Python, I suppose. Here is Dr. Hyde, Mr. Jekyll. 232. 233, we got the return of Mr. Pointy Toes. 234, Will-O-the-Wisp. I don't remember Will-O-the-Wisp, but I know I'm sure I read this comic. And finally, a 237. Was this during the Frank Miller period where briefly Stiltman became something exciting again? I'm not sure. Or maybe post Frank Miller, in terms of the Frank Miller period on Daredevil that was keeping the comic book community at the time so excited. And here we have Bob Hall art, Bob Hall and Frank Giacomo. Not a killer splash page. And what's the year here? The year is 1983. Yeah. Could this be a Frank Miller cover, in fact? I'm not sure. But it has that Frank Miller vibe. Okay, that's all of them. How long did that take me? It took me 36 minutes to go through 58 comics. So quite the haul. I don't think I'll ever again have such a big haul. Not in this particular video, but I mean in these two boxes that I got. So more to come, I guess. If you want, I think the more exciting video is of me and my daughter unboxing this stuff for the first time and pulling out random things. I find that kind of exciting to shoot a video where you don't know what's going to come out of the box. Anyway, catch me with Bullseye Bob tomorrow night. That's Tuesday night. I guess a lot of you will be seeing this on Tuesday and Wednesday and stuff. But I'll talk to you all again soon.